Tommy Robinson has been jailed at Woolwich Crown Court for 18 months after admitting contempt of court.
I mean, he's effectively been jailed for repeating false allegations he made over the past 2 years that were in breach of a court injunction. He, for 2 years he didn't, and then he started repeating them in online interviews and in a film. He made a 90-minute film that was shown a number of times.
Have you ever felt like the system was rigged against you? That no matter how hard you tried to speak the truth, powerful forces were working to silence you? That's exactly what Tommy Robinson is experiencing right now, locked away in solitary confinement for daring to expose uncomfortable truths. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. As we delve into Tommy's story, you might find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about justice and free speech in the UK.
For me, behind bars, the way I was treated, I was taken to a prison with quite a low Muslim population. What I'm known for is criticising Islam, so there's been many planned attempts to murder me and kill me in this country. Not seeing or speaking to anybody, and they used the reason that I was in danger. Now, they would have had risk assessments before I went there. I was purposely taken to be put in danger so that then that reason can be used to then put me on solitary confinement. And it took months before I got the opportunity to go before a judge. Once the judge heard what had happened in the trial, we found so many illegal and wrongdoings within this kangaroo court.
Whether you agree with his methods or not, his treatment raises alarming questions about the state of democracy in Britain today. Picture this: Tommy Robinson, locked away in a cell for 21 hours a day, his world shrunk to the size of a small room. This isn't some dystopian fiction, it's the harsh reality of Robinson's daily life in prison. For over 2 months, he's been subjected to solitary confinement, a decision made not by prison authorities, but by the government itself. Robinson's typical day is a far cry from what most of us would consider normal. He wakes up in isolation, exercises alone in a gym, showers alone, and has access to a solitary exercise yard. It's a routine designed to minimize human contact, raising serious questions about the impact on his mental health.
He believes the public has the right to have all the truth, not just what's provided by the mainstream media. He was following his principles. He passionately believes in free speech, he said, freedom of the press, and his overwhelming desire is to expose the truth. The judge said that the breaches were not accidental, negligent, or merely reckless. They were deliberate, direct, and flagrant.
But here's where things get even more troubling. While Robinson languishes in isolation, other prisoners, including violent offenders and terrorists, aren't subjected to the same treatment. As Robinson himself points out, it's not happening to the jihadist, it's not happening to the rapist. This stark contrast in treatment begs the question, why is Robinson being singled out? The psychological toll of such isolation is well documented and deeply concerning. Experts have long warned about the devastating effects of prolonged solitary confinement. Anxiety, depression, and a profound sense of hopelessness are just a few of the potential consequences. Robinson's own words paint a grim picture of his mental state. He describes feeling different and stressed, and notes that the isolation has led him to avoid going out for visits, a common psychological response to prolonged confinement. Perhaps most alarming is the duration of Robinson's isolation. He's been sentenced to 18 months for contempt of court, but he's serving this time under conditions typically reserved for more serious offenders. Unlike other civil offenders, Robinson doesn't have access to open prison conditions, which would allow for work outside and family visits. As we dig deeper into Robinson's case, we're left with more questions than answers.
This is a message to each of you who are thinking about the 26th of October. Maybe you're worried, maybe you're scared. Maybe you think you might lose your job, maybe you think you might get put in prison. Let's send a message to the world, to Keir Starmer especially, that the fight is not gone, okay? Not in us anyway. I am travelling back to the UK for literally the fight of my life. Men right now are fighting for their lives in prison, who have been falsely imprisoned, unlawfully imprisoned, pressured and forced and blackmailed to plead guilty to crimes they haven't committed. All of this will come up in our documentary, which will premiere on the 26th of October.
Why is he being treated so differently from other prisoners? What's the justification for such prolonged isolation, especially when mental health teams within the prison have warned about his devastating effects? The implications of Robinson's treatment extend far beyond his individual case. They raise fundamental questions about justice, fairness, and the use of solitary confinement in the UK prison system. As we continue to unravel this complex situation, we're forced to confront some uncomfortable truths about the state of our justice system and the treatment of controversial figures. Tommy Robinson's case has ignited a firestorm of debate about the limits of free speech in the UK. The events leading to his imprisonment read like a cautionary tale about the power of words and the consequences of crossing legal boundaries. Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, found himself on the wrong side of the law after repeating false accusations about a Syrian refugee, Jamal Hijazi. He claimed Hijazi had attacked young English girls and threatened violence. Serious allegations that turned out to be baseless. The judge at Woolwich Crown Court didn't mince words when sentencing Robinson to 18 months in prison. She noted that his breaches of court rules weren't accidental or negligent, but showed a degree of sophistication in planning to achieve maximum coverage. It's a damning assessment that paints Robinson not as a crusader for truth, but as someone who sees himself above the law. But here's where it gets complicated. Robinson's legal team argued that his actions were driven by a passionate belief in free speech. It's a defense that resonates with his supporters, who see him as a martyr for the cause of unfettered expression. On the other hand, the prosecution maintained that this case wasn't about Robinson's political views at all. They insisted it was purely about disobedience to a court order and the undermining of the rule of law. This clash of perspectives raises thorny questions about the balance between free speech and legal accountability. Is Robinson being punished for speaking uncomfortable truths or for recklessly spreading false information? The answer depends largely on where you stand politically. Legal experts point out that contempt of court laws exist to protect the integrity of the judicial process, but critics argue these laws can be weaponized to silence dissenting voices. Robinson's case exemplifies this tension, becoming a rallying point for free speech advocates who fear a creeping erosion of civil liberties in the UK. The fallout from Robinson's imprisonment has been dramatic. Thousands of his supporters have taken to the streets of London, facing off against counter-protesters from anti-racism groups. It's a stark illustration of how deeply divided British society has become over issues of free speech, immigration, and national identity. As Robinson's case continues to make headlines, it's drawing attention far beyond the UK's borders. The global spotlight on this controversy is forcing Britain to confront some uncomfortable questions about the state of its democracy. How does a nation balance the right to free expression with the need for social cohesion and legal order? It's a question that won't be answered easily, but one that's becoming increasingly urgent in these politically charged times. Tommy Robinson's case has ripped open the fault lines in British society, exposing deep-seated divisions over free speech and justice. It's not just about one man's imprisonment anymore. It's become a symbol of the struggle between those who demand unfettered expression and those who believe in legal boundaries. The way the UK government has treated Robinson, a controversial figure by any measure, could have far-reaching consequences for democracy in Britain. As the world watches, the pressure on the UK justice system is mounting. Elon Musk's public call for Robinson's release, questioning why he's in solitary confinement for telling the truth, has catapulted this case onto the global stage. It's no longer just a domestic issue. It's become a test of Britain's commitment to free speech in the eyes of the world. The UK now faces a crucial moment. How it navigates this controversy could shape the future of free expression and dissent in the country. Will the government double down on its hard line against Robinson, or will it be forced to reconsider its approach in the face of growing international scrutiny? The answers to these questions could redefine the boundaries of free speech in Britain for years to come.